Do you want to one-shot bosses, have nearly 90% to all elemental resistances, have nearly 4,000 HP, and be able to screen clear within 2 button clicks? Then watch this video. What's up, guys? Today, I've got a build guide for the Smith and Kitava Warrior. I've been using this build for over the past couple days, and I've been able to do things like Zesh Tier 4, King of the Mist Tier 3, Olroth Tier 2, and a couple Citadels with relative ease. The build can be made for super cheap and can be started as soon as you get into mapping, and the build revolves around Leap Slam and Bone Shatter for mapping, and Perfect Strike and Hammer of the Gods for bossing. We'll use Leap Slam with the new support gem Brink, which will prevent us from fully filling up a target stun bar. This is important as we need to save the heavy stun for Bone Shatter, which creates a large explosion whenever we heavy stun an enemy. Using Brink on Leap Slam will allow us to freely prime enemies for stun without having to worry about heavy stunning with the wrong skill. And Bone Shatter will use Impact Shockwaves combined with Herald of Ash to create these large fire explosions which make mapping a breeze. Bosses are made easy thanks to Perfect Strike combined with Heavy Stun and Infernal Cry. We do a ton of damage to heavy stun targets and are capable of killing map bosses in one hit. I personally see myself hit as high as 8 million in one hit, but I do plan on trying to scale this to one-shot or nearly one-shot Pinnacles here soon. We're also incredibly tanky thanks to the new Smith and Kitava Ascendancy. Nodes like Coal Stoker allow us to get tons of resistances easy, and Forge and Flame allows us to push our elemental resistances up to 90% thanks to Inferno Clasp. This high amount of elemental resistances, life, block chance, and armor makes us super tanky, and I've had a ton of fun with this build. So with that, let's go ahead and break down the skill gems and the support gems. Alright, so here we are on the Smith and Kitava, and I want to go ahead and say in the beginning that we do use weapon sets, so that this is important that you're paying attention now, if you're still here, that we are using weapon sets, and we are using certain weapon sets for certain skills, so please pay attention to this as I go through here. If you have any questions at any point, any wonders about anything, go to the timestamps and check the mapping and bossing guide. So if you feel like you're maybe not doing enough damage, or if you feel like you're not getting, enough like area of effect or something like that, please check the timestamps, check the explanations, and just make sure you're not just copying and not fully paying attention, because it's super important to get the full value out of this. So pay attention to everything that you can. So, like I said, we're using weapon sets. So what is going to be important is that you pay attention. I'll go on every skill and show you what weapon set is being used by what skill. So on Leap Slam, our main attack right here, this is what we're going to be using to stun targets or prime targets for stun. We are going to be using this on weapon set 1 only, because weapon set 1 is going to be our mapping weapon set. We're going to be running a new support gem called Brink, which is going to allow us to push the stun bar on an enemy to nearly 100%, but won't stun them. And this is important because Bone Shatter will do a shockwave whenever we hit them with it if they are primed for stun. And primed for stun just means that they are really, really close to being stunned. So this support gem will prevent us from accidentally stunning them with this skill. I'm running close combat on it for right now. This is different than the Path of Building or the Mobalytics, if you check that out, and it's because I don't have my last slot yet on Perfect Strike. So this will change as I get Perfect Jewelers, if I ever do. So that's different than what it is on the site, and that's why. I'm running Overpower to build up more stun, and I'm running Cadence for more attack speed. So that is Leap Slam on weapon set 1, and not 2. Make sure you turn off weapon set 2. So Bone Shatter, you don't have to really worry about this part. I would just do it on 1 just to be safe. Like I said, throw it on weapon set 1 or mapping weapon set. I am using Impact Shockwaves, which is going to do a aftershock whenever we heavy stun an enemy. And this uppercut attack that you see me do, this is Bone Shatter. If a target is primed for stun and I hit them with this uppercut, it will do a large shockwave, which does 1100% more attack damage. And Impact Shockwaves, whenever we do this uppercut on a primed for stun enemy, that is a heavy stun, so it will do not only this shockwave, but it will do this shockwave. We then run Magnified Effect to increase the area of effect. We then run Reach to also increase the area of effect. And typically you wouldn't want to run this on a warrior because it has reduced accuracy rating. But luckily we're running a skill in the passive skill tree that prevents us from missing. Like, we will not miss our attacks. So this is perfect. And then I run Immolate because we are going to be igniting targets with Leap Slam thanks to us running Avatar of Fire, which I will show off in the passive skill tree later. But this will give us 30% extra damage on ignited targets. So for our bossing, we're using Perfect Strike, and we're also using Hammer of the Gods, but I'll get there. On Perfect Strike, make sure you're set to weapon set 2 and not weapon set 1. And this is important because Perfect Strike, it needs to use our second hammers to get the most damage out of it. And I'll be using Window of Opportunity to get more damage whenever we hit that perfect timing on it. This kind of, you see that like glow that happens right there? That is that Window of Opportunity right there, that Perfect Strike window. So make sure that we're running this to get that 35% more damage. We're running Fire Infusion to get more fire damage because that's all that we're doing is fire damage. Concentrated Effect for more area damage, which is huge for getting extra DPS here. And then Primal Armament for a ton more elemental damage. Earth Shatter. We're using Earth Shatter to get Rage. Make sure that this is on weapon set 1 and not weapon set 2. Earth Shatter, we are going to have Font of Rage on it right here, and all that it's going to do is whenever we place these things down, it will build up Rage for us. This is huge for getting your Rage up to max stacks before we go into a boss fight. So I just have this as a utility. I'm running Upheaval to allow it to create more than 1. This is up to 3, so that way we have more area of coverage for generating Rage. I'm running Persistence, so that way these things last longer, and Martial Tempo to increase the attack animation for this. I tried running Martial Tempo in Perfect Strike, but I promise you if you want to get up to one-shotting bosses, you're going to want all damage stuff on here, so save this for Earth Shatter. Now, something else that I want to go ahead and hit on is Hammer of the Gods. They did change Hammer of the Gods this patch to where it now uses Glory. You have to build up Glory. You need 20 to use the skill. So you get Glory by heavy stunning targets. So you either have to heavy stun the boss to use it or heavy stun a whole bunch of rares or whatever in a map. So I particularly tend to use this on big rare enemies like essence monsters, like stuff like that. Maybe whenever I'm doing a ritual, I'll drop it. If I have it, I'll use it in a boss fight occasionally, but it's not like the main damaging skill here. I'm running Fist of War to ancestrally boost it for extra damage and more area of effect. I'm running Hourglass to get more damage because we're not going to be getting this more than every 10 seconds, so this is perfect. Elemental Focus for more elemental damage, and Fire Pin to allow it to pin some extra fire resistance. Now, Infernal Cry, this is huge for getting a ton of extra damage on Perfect Strike because Infernal Cry is going to empower our next melee attack, which is going to give it extra damage. We're going to get 25% of damage as fire damage per 5 power of enemies in range. So a unique enemy has 20 power, so we're looking at 100% damage as fire damage, which is huge. And we're going to be running things like Raging Cry to generate some extra rage. We're going to be running Premediation to allow our empowered skills to do 15% more damage. And then we're going to be running Enrage Warcry to allow us to consume 10 of our rage to do 30% more damage, which is huge for stacking damage for Perfect Strike. So what we'll do is we'll go into a boss fight. We'll stun it up. We'll hit it with a Bone Shatter to heavy stun it. We'll pop our Infernal Cry to give us a ton of extra damage. And then we'll hit our Perfect Strike to hit a really big damage number. So that is the point of Infernal Cry. You can also use it in mapping because it will allow you to kind of blow up some enemies with it as well. I'm then also running Herald of Ash. This is going to be like an extra added layer of explosions and fire to help you when mapping. It's just going to do a kind of overkill ignite to targets in the area whenever you overkill an enemy, which is just pretty much doing excess damage to a target whenever you kill them. So it'll take a percentage of that and apply it as ignite damage to nearby targets, which is great for getting some extra AoE. Most importantly, make sure you're running Cannibalism and Herbalism in here because Cannibalism is going to give you 2% life on kill and Herbalism is going to give you 30% increased recovery from Life Flask, which we need our Life Flask because we have life. So good to keep us alive there. Now, also important, I forgot to show you guys the weapon sets for Hammer of the Gods, which will be weapon set 1, and Infernal Cry I got on weapon set 2, and Herald of Ash doesn't matter, sorry. On these two Spirit Gems right here, I'm alternating between Overwhelming Presence and Berserk, and what I'll do is whenever I go into a like Pinnacle boss fight, or even maybe like a map boss if I want to, I don't really have to, but Berserk is going to give us more effect from our rage, which will give us extra damage. But the kicker is that it will take away at some of your life. So it's important to use this when bossing and pay attention. If you're draining too much of your life, turn it off. and leave on Overwhelming Presence. I use Overwhelming Presence whenever I'm mapping because it's going to reduce the stun threshold and the element threshold of targets, allowing us to stun faster and have a higher chance to ignite. So that is all of the skill and support gems. Don't worry about any of these up here. I'm gonna go ahead and break down the gear and the weapon sets. So here we are over here on our gear, and like I said, we do have different weapon sets, but I'll go ahead and start with the mapping weapons, the mapping setup right here. So I am running a hammer with level of melee skill and a ton of physical damage with a little bit of added elemental on top. The big thing here is just to make sure that you get a ton of physical damage. If you want to scale your damage even higher, level of melee skill is huge for doing it this patch because they kind of turn down the cost of skills at higher levels. So you can run higher level, plus whatever level of skills now much more effectively. So that's what I'm running on here. I am running physical damage runes. I did check path ability to make sure the increased elemental damage with attacks or skill speed, and these ones right here will yield the best DPS for things like Leap Slam and Bone Shatter. On my other hand, I have the this tower shield right here, and I would look to get things like max life, strength, because we need a lot of strength. I got chaos resistance on here because chaos res is, we gotta make sure we cap that out. And then I have additional physical damage reduction. This is just a good way to get some extra physical damage reduction right here. I do have 43% chance to block and a good bit of armor. This is a pretty juicy shield. I did buy it and it didn't have chaos and it didn't have like increased block chance, and I crafted it and it rolled like this. So I probably will never sell this shield. But yeah, that's what I recommend for your offhand. So a big thing about Smith of Kitava is that you need to be using a white body armor if you're doing part of the tree. And the best white body armor to do is the Ornate Plate because it has a passive regenerate % of maximum life per second. I would recommend trying to get one that is corrupted with 3 sockets, so that way you can socket an additional thing in here. And yeah. We're also going to be running a unique helm called the Thrill Still, and this is important because it grants us Onslaught, and I would also get a 2-socket one, so that way you can, add more strength or resistances, whatever you need. But Onslaught is going to give us 20% increased skill speed and 10% increased move speed, which is huge for making sure that our attack animations aren't super slow, because that's how they just are on Warrior. So you got to have this. For the gauntlets, I'm just running a nice pair of armor and +2 level of melee skill. Like I said, if you want to scale your damage super high, I recommend getting level of melee skill on your gauntlets. Go for strength because you're going to need to get really high strength. I just happen to have added damage to attacks. It is a nice way to get some bonus damage. Instead of accuracy, I would have liked to had max life. The more max life we have, the tankier that we are, and then I have a resistance on them. On my boots, I'm running, of course, movement speed. We want as much movement speed as we can get on Warrior. Get strength, and I got chaos on here. So if you can get, like I said, I have reduced attribute requirements. If I had max life here, that'd be huge. And stun threshold isn't bad on Warrior, so that's not a wasted stat. Just make sure you're getting all the strength that you need. You can see that I'm running these greater robust runes to get added strength. So make sure you're getting as much strength as you can, because you got to meet the requirements on our weapons, which is really high. I am running the Inferno class plate belt, which is super important for making sure that we get our capped resistances. We are at 90, 90, 90, and 75. And this is all thanks to Inferno class giving us +4% to maximum fire resistance. I'll explain it whenever we get to the passive tree. But what this is doing is it's giving us +4 to maximum fire resistance. And thanks to the Smith, it's also giving us +4 to cold and lightning. And we have other things tied to it that are also going to increase this maximum resistance. So it's also going to give us some strength and some armor and some fire res. So super good belt. You got to have this as well. On my rings, I am running rings that have strength. You got to have strength. And then I would recommend that you get a ton of fire res, all elemental resist, any other resistances you need. I would like to have, instead of mana here, life, but I also just have added physical, added fire. Any added damages and increased fire damage is huge here for increasing our DPS. Same on this ring. I have fire res on top. I have added damages at max life. We need some strength. We also do need some dex and int, as we do have gem requirements up here. You see we have to have at least 5 slots for dex, at least 4 slots for int at the moment. So you gotta make sure that you have all those. And on my amulet, we are allocating it with acceleration to give us increased skill speed and increased movement speed. I have percent increased max life, which is nice. You can also get flat plus to life, or you can try to get both. If you can get percent increased armor here, that's huge. But the main thing to note is that I have +3 level of all melee skill. You can get a +2 for very cheap. I got added strength because we need a ton of strength, like I said. And then I have chaos res to make sure I'm capping my chaos res out. For the flask, I would recommend that you get a very high recovery flask. I would either recommend that you get one like mine to where it removes percent of life recovered from mana, because we don't use mana with this setup. Or I would recommend that you get one that has a percent of recovery applied instantly flask. So your flask is super important here for making sure that you can have a panic button to heal yourself. Mana flask does not matter because we don't have mana, so it doesn't even matter. On our charm, and I would recommend that you try to get an Inferno class with 2 or even possibly 3 slots here. I'm running a stone charm to help me not get stunned. If I do get stunned, it's going to grant me guard, which is going to be a buff that absorbs damage from hits. You could also do gain life whenever you during effect. But I do have gain charges per second to make sure this is just passively building up charges over time. The other charm that I would run is a freeze charm, and there may be some unique charms to run here too. I haven't looked very heavily into those yet. All right, so that is the mapping weapon set. The bossing weapon set, the only difference is all this other gear remains the same, but the only thing that changes is on our hammers, we are going to be scaling for as high plus level of melee skill as possible. So I have +6 on this one. I also just happen to have pretty nice physical damage and some added fire. You're going to run skill speed if you can afford them. If you can't afford them, I'm pretty sure that the iron runes, the increased physical damage ones, are the best ones to run otherwise. It's either that or attack speed runes. Same thing for this hammer. I have level of melee skill. This one also just happens to have increased elemental damage with attacks because we are doing only fire damage, and then I have increased physical damage on here. So I would make sure that you are getting hammers with as high plus level and high physical or increased elemental damage with attacks. I would recommend that you use Path of Building to help you figure out how to what weapons are going to be upgrades for you. I do have a YouTube video on that. I'll try to do an updated one here soon, so that way it's kind of more up to date and easier to maneuver and figure out. But it is important that these 2 hammers have as high plus level of melee skill as possible on them. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and break down the passive tree. So here's the passive tree. I will go ahead and zoom out for anybody that just wants to copy. So here's this section right here, and these are weapon setted, so try to pay attention to the weapon sets. And I'll go down here for anybody that wants to just copy. Okay. And all right, so here we are on the ascendancy. I would recommend that when you first do your ascendancy, the first points that you pick would be these right here, and then the next 2 will be this one right here. And then you get try to do your 3rd and 4th at the same time, so you can get these. So what's important is we are running Coal Stoker here, which is going to grant us, whenever we have fire resistance on an item, 50% of that fire res on that item will also grant cold and lightning. So if it's 20, it's like let's say we have a pair of boots that have 20% fire res on them. It's also going to give us 10% cold and lightning, which is great. And then these small nodes are going to grant 15%. So these are also giving us like 7 or 7.5, 8%, whatever you want to call it, fire res as well. And then Forged in Flame, which is going to make it to where any modifier to max fire also grants max cold and lightning. So things like the Inferno class, which give us +4 to maximum fire, is also granting +4 to cold and lightning, which is huge. That also applies to like down here. So this node right here, to where it makes it to where you can only use a normal body armor, which is a white body armor like this. But we can pick any of these nodes on here. So I've elected that the first 2 that you should go with needs to be the increased strength and the increased max life, because we have a very high strength requirement. And of course, the more max life that we have, the tankier that we are. After that, I recommend that you get this one right here, Flowing Metal, because it's going to give us 5% max fire, which is also going to grant 5% max cold and lightning. And then this one right here, Molten Symbol, to where our body armor grants 25% of physical damage from hits taken as fire. So 25% of physical damage that we take is taken as fire damage. This is important because we only have 54% armor, but we do have 90% fire. So this is going to increase our physical max hit that we can take by a ton to make us even tankier. So that's it for the Ascendancy. So I am using weapon sets, and I'll show off which are which, so that we can see. If you want a easier way to look at the skill tree, please go look at the mobalytics or the path of building. It's much easier to see because that color is so hard to tell when zoomed out. All right, so I'm coming out this way and getting these nodes right here because we have damage penetrates fire res, which is huge because things in in-game have a ton of fire res, which is we want to go through that so we do the most damage as possible. So pick those. I then hit here to get some stun build up, some melee, and some added strength. This is right here so we can get some extra armor on our body armor. And then I come particularly out here to get the regenerate max life and the strength. It also has increased armor on it as well. These are all normal points as well. So coming out this way, we got melee damage and melee damage against heavy stun enemies. And then we come out to this point. These two are going to be on weapon set 1. Weapon set 1. These are specifically going to be for mapping. Area of effect nodes are going to be for mapping. I come out here to get damage with hits against burning enemies, and we gain 12% of our physical damage as extra fire damage. Come down this way, and all these nodes are strength. We need a ton of strength. We come straight down this way. All these are going to be normal points, and we have these two on weapon set 2 and these two on weapon set 1. And this is because we're wanting area of effect for weapon set 1 so that way we can map more effectively. And these are damage nodes for weapon set 2 to make sure that we're doing enough damage to bosses. All right, same thing, area of effect on weapon set 1. And then these are normal points right here. I've got strength, 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 because we need it. And then armor, and then this node's going to also give 15 strength and also defend with 200% of armor against crit hits. So super, super nice for increasing our tankiness. Come down this way, here's a jewel. I've got increased fire damage, damage with maces. Come out this way. I'm getting this specifically because +5 stun threshold, +5 and then stun threshold, and then 3% max life and more stun threshold. This is a good way to increase our tankiness even more. We're going to grab Resolute Technique. This is going to make it to where our hits can't be evaded, so we will never miss, but we can't deal crit hits. But that is fine because there's nothing that we're doing here that builds in the crit hits, so it's okay. We are then, after this node beyond this node, weapon set 1, so that way we can get area of effect stuff for our mapping. We come down this way, and I'm grabbing these nodes right here, so that way we can get some extra attack damage on weapon set 2 for bossing. You could also go with these right here, because we do inflict Ignite, which does drain HP pretty effectively. I'll have to check the path of building. This might be a good thing to pick once I level up a bit more. I'm at 91 right now, so... And then we're going to come down this way, and I'll go ahead and go up this way and show you. Right now, I'm grabbing this node, but I'm going to respec as I level up, probably. I'm either going to grab these for weapon set 2, or I'm going to grab these empowered attack stuff right here for extra damage, but just make sure that you're getting this node right here, Skull Crusher, because you get 20% more damage against heavy stun enemies, and that's more damage. That's not additive, that's multiplicative, so that's huge for extra damage. And then we come here to Avatar Fire. This is going to convert 75% of our damage to fire, but we deal no non-fire damage. So why this is good is because as a melee character, you have to worry about armor. So you have to do armor break, but I don't want to have to worry about armor break because that's too many things to worry about, too many skill gems that are wasting damage. So we're going to do all elemental, and we're going to do damage penetrating fire resistant stuff on it. So run Avatar Fire. I can show you on the path of building that if we took this off, we would lose DPS. So run this. So come up this way, another jewel. I got max fire res. I've got damage with maces. Our empowered attacks deal extra damage and then rage on melee hit. I then grab blood magic. This is a important part of the build because we have no mana. We don't have to worry about mana. This is instead converted to life cost, which is fine because we're getting life on kill. We're regenerating life. You don't have to worry about it. Weapon set 2 right here. We have strength. And we're going to go with attack damage on all of these. This is just to boost that DPS up a ton. And right here on this weapon set 2, we have extra damage for bossing. And this is going to be weapon set 1 for area of effect. Okay, coming down this way, we're going to have all of these strength nodes, which they have reduced max mana, which doesn't matter because we don't have mana. And then 1% increased damage per 15 strength. So that's huge because we have a ton of strength. We grab Giant's Blood. This is what's making our strength requirements so high. It's going to triple the attribute requirements, but we can wield two two-handed maces or a two-handed mace and a big shield. So we want that. Coming down this way, we grab these maximum resistance nodes, and this one right here to +5 to all, and then 1% max fire resistance for each 40 uncapped fire res. That's what's getting us close to or at 90 right now. Right here, we have a ruby. We got max fire, melee, and yeah, there's weapon swap speed, which is kind of minimal, but we then have fire damage, damage penetrates, fire resistance. Then this is right here is weapon set 2. We got damage penetrates, fire resistance, and we have hits against burning enemies. Right here, this node, and these 2 nodes are going to be on the normal points, and then these 2 right here are going to be on weapon set 1 for mapping. And then come over this way and grab all of these because these 3 to all attributes help us fill out our dex and int, and then we get 7% increased attributes to increase our strength even further. I grab these attack speed nodes right here to increase our attack speed, and then I grab up this jewel slot right here to get damage penetrates fire res, get rage on melee hits, stun build up, and melee damage. So yeah, that is it for the passive tree. Like I said, I would recommend that you go check out the Mobalytics for a more clear painted picture. But yeah, now I will go ahead and show you a mapping breakdown and a bossing breakdown on how our damage works and how we get the most out of our skills. All right, so here's the mapping demonstration. I'm going to use this tier 14 because I don't want to waste one of my tier 15s right now. And I'll go ahead and show you kind of how we clear well and, you know, what to really do. All right, so here we are. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be leap slamming into a group of enemies. And you'll notice this icon on them. And if you hit that with that bone shatter, it creates that big explosion. So I'll just kind of walk around, I'll jump, and you see the icon, uppercut, and dead. So that is what is creating those big explosions, is that uppercut. They have to have that icon on them. If you don't see that icon, you know, keep slamming. My damage has gotten to the point that I'm accidentally killing things with leap slam rather than doing it with bone shatter, which is fine. But sometimes it can be frustrating because you're wanting to hit that bone shatter to do a big AoE. But that's really about all that you really have to do with it. If I run across a rare, like let me find a rare to show you real quick. So like a rare like this, if like I'm in a tier 15, like a juice one, I'll kind of like pop my hammer of the gods, or I'll stun them and bone shatter them or something like that. Like you can hold that in your pocket for rares specifically, or like an essence monster. Like if there's a monster in an essence crystal, you can pop your hammer of the gods and then break the crystal open, so that way the hammer falls on them right as the monster comes out the crystal. So yeah, that is the mapping demonstration. I'll go ahead and break down how we get all the damage that we do whenever we're bossing. All right, so here I am over my media player for whenever I was doing a boss. I went and clipped it so that way I could break it down and pause it. So what I've done is I'm at the boss arena and I have prepped my earth shatter kind of objects to build up my rage. You see I have 30 rage, and I'm walking into the boss arena now. As I'm getting closer to the boss, I'm hitting it again, so that way they get closer and I don't run out of rage. So I get closer, I'll drop another one and I'll walk up to him. So what I do is whenever he goes to enter his, I can actually hit him, I'm going to leap slam him to build up his stun bar. I'll hit him one more time you see he's not stunned because the bar turns orange whenever he's fully stunned. But now what I can do is I can hit him with bone shatter. You see the little light right there? That means I can hit him with bone shatter. So I bone shatter him to heavy stun him. All right, now that I've heavy stunned him, I'm going to pop my war cry, my infernal cry, because this is going to empower my next attack. And I'm now charging up my perfect strike, and I'm gonna hit him with it, and it just completely one-shots him. Now this is a tier 2 map boss, or sorry, tier 3 map boss right now, so I think they're sitting at around like 2.5 mil. I think it's either 2.5 mil, somewhere around there. They rescaled boss HP, so I'm not exactly sure. It might be closer to 3 mil, but that completely one-shots him. So that is a example on what to do for a map boss. I'll go ahead and do an example on what I do for a pinnacle boss. So here I am on my media player again. And excuse me being locked in right here. This was, I think, tier 3 King of the Mist, and I had yet to upgrade my gear, so my damage and my, life wasn't as good. Like, I hadn't upgraded my weapons yet. So I'm locked in, trying not to die right now. But Pinnacle bosses are a little bit different because they have a very, very, very large stun bar. Like, you have to hit them a lot to stun them. So what I tend to do is kind of dodge around and hit them and build up that stun. You can't just, immediately stun them like a normal map boss. boss. So I've prepped my rage as he's getting ready to enter his second stage. So you'll see he enters his second stage. I'm then going to Warcry, so that way I can do damage and start to build up that stun bar. I'm gonna hit him with a perfect strike because I need to build up that stun bar more. So I perfect strike him. I perfect strike him again, and now you can see he has the yellow orb. So now I can bone shatter him. And once I bone shatter him, he's now heavy stunned. I'm then going to perfect strike again, which I should have Infernal Cry to get the most out of my damage, but I don't think I didn't have the cooldown yet. I don't think. I was right there at it. I almost had the cooldown. So yeah, I'm still building up the cooldown right there. So I perfect strike, and I could have war cried right here, but he was already almost dead, so I didn't even bother. So boom, hit him again. That's all I had to do for Pinnacle bosses, and it's a little bit different than map bosses because of their stun bar being much larger. So just to run it back again, all I did was build up my rage. I then war cried to blow up all the projectiles and build up the stun bar. Perfect strike's a great tool to build up stun if you can't do it with leap slam. So I perfect strike. Now he's primed for stun. I uppercut him to heavy stun him, and now I can worry about doing big damage. So yeah, that is Pinnacle bosses. So that's going to be it for the video. I appreciate if you guys made it this far. If you have any questions, please feel free to stop by my Twitch and ask me some questions. I can help you guys out. I'd be happy to. Let me know what you think of the build. Leave any suggestions in the comments. If you really like the video, give me a like or a sub. And yeah, I hope to see you guys here again soon. And yeah, see y'all.